Now the federal government of Nigeria has approved the Fiscal Policy Measures 2023 for FPM 2023, which is dated 20th April 2023 with an effective date of May 1st, 2023, replaces the Fiscal Policy Measures 2022 and comprises of the following. Let's take a look at some of those measures. Supplementary protection measures for the implementation of the ECOWAS Common External Tariff 2022 to 26. Import prohibition list applicable to certain goods originating from non-ECOWAS member states. Changes in excise duty rates on certain items such as tobacco and alcoholic beverages. And introduction of green taxes on single-use plastics and certain categories of vehicles, alongside reported imported duty rates on certain manufacturing items available to verifiable manufacturers. Now, joining me from Johannesburg to discuss further is Taiwo Oyedele, partner, Fiscal Policy and Africa Tax Leader, PwC. Good morning to you, Taiwo.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for being on the show. Now, quite the parting gift, as you have put it. But let's begin with some immediate concerns around the FPM 2023, one of which is the immediacy of some of its provisions. It actually goes against the national tax policy requirement on the implementation window for new measures. Could you speak to the validity of this concern and why it could possibly have been overlooked?
Thank you very much. So that is indeed very correct. So the national tax policy, which was approved in 2017, tries to set out the framework within which we introduce fiscal policy and tax changes in Nigeria. And in particular, it emphasizes the need for stakeholder consultation. It emphasizes the need for data and empirical evidence for decision making. And more importantly, it requires that whenever government introduces new tax policies, government must give a minimum of 90 days between when the announcement is made and the implementation would commence. So these fiscal policy measures for 2023 seem to have failed on those very important counts. One, it was dated 20th of April. Let's even say that's the date it was published. The commencement of a number of the measures in the circular was 1st of May. That's barely 11 days. And then for the other ones, other provisions of the circular, it will be 1st of June. Even that is not even up to 2 months. And some of the changes are significant, like the single-use plastics tax, as well as even the significant increases in excise duties on tobacco, alcohol, wine, spirits, without sufficient consultation with the industry to even try and understand what they are going through at these difficult times. So overall, it seems like something that was done in a haste and not enough consultation, and therefore could actually turn out to be counterproductive, contrary to whatever intentions government has in introducing many of those provisions.
Absolutely, it could turn out to be counterproductive. But let's look at the supplementary protection measures for the implementation of the ECOWAS Common External Tariff. What are some of the key parameters around this in relation to its merits?
Yeah, so the supplementary protection measures are meant to help protect Nigeria while we're trying to implement the Common External Tariff. We belong to the ECOWAS community, as well as the African Continental Free Trade Area. So in principle, what you want to do is not to open your door, for a floodgate of dumping of different products. So in principle, that's a good step in the right direction. But by the time you look at the details of the items on the list, some of them you would question why they're there. For example, rice attracts a very high import duty rate, I think about 70%. You have things like electric generator in a country where you don't have electricity. So why should I be punished for importing generators? You also have things on the list like, even electricity meter. Why are we imposing a lot of, tariff on electricity meters? So I think that while it's important to protect our borders in terms of what comes into Nigeria, we have to really think about our economy. Rice, for example, do we have sufficient local production? If the answer is no, why punish us for trying to find the difference so we can, eat and stay alive? So government has to make sure that whenever they are introducing policies or implementing existing ones, they are done within the context of the economy such that we don't unduly make our already difficult situation even worse.
Right, Taiwo, it's a good thing you mentioned policy because, of course, as we know, policy inconsistency and lack of impact assessment are other areas of concern here. You raised some key issues in a PwC review of the fiscal policy measures. On the excise duties, you pointed out no basis for computing them. Now, could you expand on this a bit more?
Yes, so on one hand, we have, a bit of history behind this. We will not be able to go into it, but essentially the government wants to increase excise on tobacco, alcohol, as well as even non-alcoholic beverages to a certain level. But then the understanding is that you cannot do all of that overnight. You cannot increase the tax on a product, say, by 500% overnight. You kill that sector. So the plan was then to say, can we agree increases over a period of time in a phased manner? So that was, it started in 2018. They had a 3-year roadmap that expired in 2021. And then another one that was agreed in 2022 for 2022, 2023, and 2024. And then just 1 year into the implementation, government decided that they want to further increase the increases that they have agreed without consultation. So that we believe that could have been done differently. Then in terms of the basis for the calculation, this is particularly so for the single-use plastic. So you have excise tax on single-use plastic, and we don't know whether it will be based on, the cost of producing the material. Would it be ex-factory? That's what we call ex-factory price. That's the price at the factory gate. Would it be the final product, at which they will sell it to whoever is using those materials for input? Just imagine going to a mall and they give you a bag. The bag is usually free. So would we say that 10% of free is nothing? Does it mean I shouldn't pay? So that is not clear. Same thing for telecommunication. The excise duty on telecommunication is going to be based on what? What is the ex-factory price for your airtime? There's no factory where they produce airtime. So all these analyses and details are things that government should have done, even issuing regulations with detailed guidelines. And then it's bad enough you haven't done that. You now make the commencement to be almost like immediately. It's really just impossible to implement.
Right, Taiwo, I know that you mentioned telecommunications. I think we should stay on that a little bit more. As we know, there are quite a number of areas of concern, but we know that this administration had previously suspended the imposition of a 5% tax on telecommunications services. But the licensed telecoms owners claim that they're already incurring a catalog of taxes. When we look at the telecommunications tax under the new measures, is there a justification for this on the government's part here, in your opinion?
It's going to be difficult to try and justify the approach of the government, even when there's merit in what they're trying to do. So you're right about, we initially were told that there's excise on telecommunication, and then we heard that it's been suspended. But I have to tell you that the whole thing about suspension only came from the Minister for Communication and Digital Economy, who, legally speaking, has no role to play in matters of fiscal policy and taxation. There was no such confirmation from the presidency or Ministry of Finance, even though the communication minister said that it was a meeting with the president and the president approved the waiver. So it was surprising to now see the fiscal policy measure essentially saying that that imposition we made since last year is still in place. Like almost like saying ignore the Minister for Communication and Digital Economy. But if I park that by the side to your question, telecommunication excise is one of the easiest taxes to collect. So in principle, there's nothing wrong with imposing excise on telecommunication, but you have to do that in a way that it will not impact the sector negatively. For example, you could start with postpaid packages. So postpaid services are usually done by middle class and the elite, so they can afford an extra 5%. It is true that that sector bears a lot of burden in terms of taxes, similar to other sectors like manufacturing as well. Government needs to even harmonize these taxes. Instead of over 30 taxes, that only maybe 3 or 4 of them are giving you the bulk of the revenue. Why don't you repeal all the others that are creating problems for the sector without generating revenue for government. So you then consolidate the number of taxes to very few broad base with sufficient consultation, deciding to protect the most vulnerable people, and then you're good to go. So these are the things that are lacking. Even in the alcoholic beverage sector and tobacco, because of the naira scarcity problem that government itself created, their turnover sales has declined by double digits. Some of them record decline. They are barely struggling to stay afloat. Some of them planning to close some of their factories. And then government, as if they don't care about that, now decided to increase the increased rate of their excise duty just at the wrong time. I can't find the appropriate word to define or describe how disappointed I think this is in terms of managing the economy and sending the right signals.
Yes, that's very important. Of course, we spoke about consumables. That's a major area of agitation for a lot of consumers. But then you also mentioned the single-use plastics. There are green taxes on single-use plastics and certain vehicle categories. But your report also questions the legal basis for the tax. Could you speak about this a little bit more, please?
Yes. So we have, generally, the powers to make laws only reside with the lawmakers. In Nigeria, that would be the National Assembly. And sometimes they can delegate part of that power to the executive. For example, the National Assembly, while enacting the Finance Act 2020, introduced excise duty on telecommunications. But they did not specify the rate. They did not specify when it will commence. And they then delegated that power to the president and stated that the president, by order, may introduce the rate and state the commencement date, which was what the president did in 2022. Now, for tobacco, for alcohol, for non-alcoholic beverages, there are also provisions in the law enabling the executive to prescribe those rates. Apart from non-alcoholic beverages where the rate has already been prescribed.
Right.
Now, move that conversation to the single-use plastic. There's no law saying that you could impose excise on single-use plastic. Why is the executive now assuming the powers of the National Assembly to make laws and impose taxes on an item that wasn't specifically mentioned in the enabling law in the first place? That's the angle we're coming from.
Okay, that adds a lot of color to it. But Taiwo, let's take a holistic look at the fiscal policy measures for 2023. Would you say this is the right path to explore? Or is there a need to perhaps look at the informal sector and find some low-hanging fruits there? What are the feasibilities around this?
Yeah, so there are low-hanging fruits everywhere for these governments if they want to make money from taxation and raise revenue without creating dislocations in the economy. But it seems like they're always very comfortable with the easy solutions, which is just increase the rate of tax, impose it on those who are trying to comply, rather than trying to do a little bit of hard work. For example, the Auditor General report shows that many MDAs, that's government agencies, are not even compliant with their tax obligations. Not only is it that they are refusing to remit the revenue that they generate, they are even collecting withholding tax and VAT from contractors and vendors, and they are not remitting to the government. That, for me, it's the lowest hanging fruit, because all you need to do is fire the head of MDA and the next person will come and even over-remit if possible. You also find issues to do with tax harmonization. All manners of agencies are trying to collect revenue, and in the process, there's significant leakages. Harmonize them, let only the Federal Revenue Service collect revenue and taxes for the government, and you see the improvement significantly in the revenue numbers. Then use tax for intelligence about what economic activities are people doing, so you can know when they are paying taxes or not. If I ask you to go and give me the list of the top 1,000 importers in Nigeria today, you'll be lucky to find half of them in the corporate income tax net. How is that possible? Go to the land registry. You find people who have and own land even in places like Lagos and Abuja. Majority of them are not in the tax net. Use that intelligence to collect taxes that are currently due, not to introduce new one or increase the existing rate of the taxes we're already paying.
All right, Taiwo, this has been extremely insightful, and we're hoping that we get the right sensitization to address all of these issues. Thank you so much, Taiwo Oyedele, for joining me this morning.